And we're done. Whew. Only took 30 fine liners and 3 hours of my hard-earned time and some elbow grease, but man, I got a whole bottle of Staedtler's ink. Now, if only there was a way to actually get this without having to milk so many markers. Okay. Apparently they just sell it, like this, in a bottle. I didn't have to waste my time. Alright, roll that intro. What's up YouTube, I'm J-Rod of BATtlebrawlerproductions, and today we're taking a look at the Staedtler Mars Matic ink. Now, I know Staedtler is the guys that make those really nice, high-quality, multicolor fine liners, and I recently found out they actually sell normal black fine liners. And when I found out they sell the ink by itself, I had to pick it up and give it a shot. But to make this video a little more interesting, I did pick up one of those fine liners, a chiseled, as this was the only thing my local Michaels had. Why not just make this video a little more interesting? Now, if we take a look at the packaging, I have to say that it is pretty interesting. Now, it does say it's made in Germany, and we have taken a look at a German before, and it came in a very similar packaging. You just open up this little cardboard container and you reveal your inkwell, which honestly looks more like an ink cartridge. Kind of interesting how all the inks that we've taken a look at Germany have this similar design to it. You do get a little indicator to see how much ink is in there, which I really do like. I think that's really nice. And then I did notice there's actually two caps. So if you open this bottom one, you get the actual inkwell itself. So there you go. You get this huge opening. And if you close that up and then you open the top one, kind of weird how they did this, but oh well. It's actually going to reveal the little nozzle so that you can actually pour the ink out. So that's kind of interesting. I've never seen an inkwell that does anything like this before. So this one really kind of sticks out to me on a few levels. I spilled ink. I don't think there's no going back from this. It's not coming off. Take a closer look at the inkwell. You can see again, it just has that really interesting shape. I do like that little indicator there so you know how much ink is in there as you use it. And then the front, which totally wasn't stained by me at all, is pretty interesting because it says it's a drawing ink. You get it in a few different languages. But what stands out to me is it's 22 milliliters or 3/4 fluid ounces. And this ink is pretty cheap. I believe it sells for $3.99 to $4.99 on Amazon. At least that's the price range I paid for it. So very interesting, the price range and the quantity you get. Honestly, I'm surprised it's not just a full ounce of ink, but whatever. And then taking a look at the fine liner itself, just super quick. It's just kind of a standard fine liner. You got company information. This one again is a chiseled tip. One detail I do like is that instead of just saying like chiseled, it just have a little drawing of one, which I thought was pretty cool. And again, we'll be using these two in conjunction to do our illustration. So let's go ahead and break out the Batman sketchbook. Alright, my prediction right now is that this ink is going to work really well with our quill nib, with our dip pen, but probably not as well with our brushes because I really do get the feeling this ink is really meant for technical and fine liners. Well, let's give it a shot. Ooh, that's nice. It is smooth, it's going down the paper well. It's hugging the nib very well, I do like that. Yeah, that's good, I like that. I like that. Not the smoothest ink I've ever used, but it's doing its job. It kind of feels like I'm actually using a fine liner right now more than an actual dip pen, but I'm actually able to get that line variance that you can't really get with fine liners. You can fudge it a little bit, but not that much, not at all. Now let's see how it's going to work with the quill nib. I'm assuming it's probably honestly going to work a little better because it has a much finer, much more controlled point, so let's go ahead and give that a test. And before you say anything, yes, I am aware of this bleeding and edging that's on my lines. However, this paper really isn't meant for dip pens, so it's going to do that. And if we use Bristol board, we will see that these lines do not do that. In fact, I'm willing to bet you if we tried a fine liner, it wouldn't do that because this is really meant more for a fine liner. So taking a look with our quill nib, we're gonna, yeah, that is really good. I like that. So it goes down just really, really nice. It hugs the nib. Again, it's not the smoothest ink, but I do like it. It feels like I'm using an actual fine liner, not dip pen. And that feeling is just made a little bit more apparent with the quill nib because it's smaller. You're able to get those finer details in. Let's go ahead and give it a test with our brush, and this is where I think that this ink will be lacking because it's really not meant for a brush, it's meant for technical pens, but again, we're still going to test it. Yeah, just as I thought. It's not the smoothest when it comes to using the brush, but it is doing its job. It's going to be one of those inks where I feel like as you try to work it, it's going to thin out and you're going to get some areas of gray. So it's really not meant for a brush, but we're still going to, of course, use it because we're kind of crazy and insane that way. But no, it's not bad. It's not the worst. It's not the worst ink I've ever used with a brush. I would have to say that is easily the Daily Roni Dollar Tree ink. Go ahead and test the fine liner real quick. We'll also do an ink wash, and then we'll see if this is alcohol marker proof, because that's another question I have. Because even if it's not, of course, Staedtler does have a really nice array of color fine liners that you could use in conjunction with this for highlights. So let's go ahead and just test those things out real quick. Not bad at all. You can get some good line variation, you get a few different types of width with this. Not the best chisel nib I've used, in all honesty. I would probably have to say First McCullough the best chisel nib, but it's not bad. I do enjoy it, so yeah. It's not bad at all. Let's go ahead and do that ink wash test. I'm really curious how that's going to work, so let's pick up some of the ink. And there we go. It is watered down. Of course, we're grabbing this from our cup, which has been watering down our ink to clean our tools. It's not bad at all, actually. Interestingly, I actually think this ink washes better than it does with the normal, because that water helps it spread. It helps it actually kind of go in and add a little extra. Is this waterproof? I assume it is. Let's find out. Our lines... Yeah, it's fairly waterproof. I don't think it's super waterproof, but it's pretty water resistant. And then we'll just see if it's alcohol proof. So we'll do our test. We'll give this 2 hours to dry. And it is. That's actually really nice and very surprising. Let's test the fine lines. And yep, they are indeed alcohol proof, even the watered down version. So hey, that's awesome. So you can actually use alcohol markers with this ink. Pretty cool. Now that we're back with our findings, let's go ahead and talk about the illustration we'll be doing today. And today's illustration is, of course, of our superhero, C.H.A.M.B.E.R. You thought I was going to say Wrath? Nope, I said C.H.A.M.B.E.R. Because C.H.A.M.B.E.R.'s design leans way more towards technical pens, cross-hatching, and overall just more use of our actual pen tools and our brush tools. And I think that'll work well with this ink, so we're going to play towards that. We're still going to do some ink washes, still going to do some awesome splatter effects, and I'm really excited to get started. So let's go ahead and roll that super time lapse. Inking this piece was definitely a challenge, and the number one thing that came to mind, and you're going to hear me mention this later on in the video, is messy. This ink likes to stain, it likes to run, it likes to be messy. And I don't know why that is. I did enjoy the process. It wasn't frustrating, it was just kind of nice, but the buildings were a little bit troublesome for me here and there because of the messiness of the ink. And overall, I wish that I did use a cleaner ink to really make this piece pop, but I still enjoyed what I did. I still think the ink washes came out amazing. I think that using this ink with a brush was enjoyable. I did find that, yes, I did have to dip a lot, but I was able to control the brush pretty well for the most part, a little better than the test, and using it with a quill pen was awesome. Most of the time, I actually just used my quill pen to do really nice fine feathering and cross-hatching, but here, that was not the case. I did almost the entire illustration with my actual quill pen because I really enjoyed the strong lines I was getting, and with this piece, there wasn't a lot of cross-hatching needed. I felt like I really had everything illuminated well with his body being encapsulated in this glow, and I just had fun doing it. The Kirby crackle effect was super enjoyable to do, and I love doing my splatter effect, so I just kept adding and adding to it. I decided to kind of play off a few things improv, such as the clouds in the background, kind of like the gust of wind with him flying. I felt like there was just elements that I freehanded that I thought would come out good, and I really do like how they came out, though they could have been blended a little better. Overall, this illustration was frustrating, but I decided to just lean into what the ink was offering and just make it fit with the theme. Now that we're done, let's go ahead and take a look at our finished product. And we're done. Guys, absolutely love how this piece came out. Easily in my top 10 favorite pieces of the year. C.H.A.M.B.E.R. is one of those characters that I just absolutely love to illustrate, and ever since I learned how to do the proper Kirby Crackle inking technique, oh boy, I love illustrating him more and more because he's just so much fun to go in and add these textures and energy to it, and this piece is no different. And if you guys like it, it is available on my ArtStation account for a $1 digital download. It's that first link in the description down below, and it really does help the channel. Plus, you get an awesome desktop background. But putting this piece aside, let's talk about the ink itself. The number one thing that I'm going to describe this ink as is messy. This is a super stain happy ink. For some reason, when I was making this piece, this ink kept staining the paper. Now, I actually leaned into it because, if you don't know, Wrath and C.H.A.M.B.E.R. don't operate in the same city. C.H.A.M.B.E.R. operates in a fictional city named New East Detroit, which is a very torn down, very run down part of the city. It's very destroyed, it's very grimy, there's a lot of supervillain activity, there's a lot of violence, and thus the city itself has a very dirty look. Now, Wrath has a very gothic architecture city. It actually combines elements of Pittsburgh with different architecture you can see in Spain, and it just creates this gothic look. So they're very different cities, and with C.H.A.M.B.E.R. I could lean into that messy, grimy look. It actually worked really well with this ink, and the texture on it was really fun to do. But as a whole, I just found that this was very dirty, very, not difficult to control, but I just found that it just, for some reason, would stain the paper very, very easily. And I know what you're thinking, like, oh, you're probably just inexperienced. Guys, have you not been paying attention to this channel? I've been doing inking for almost 2.5 full couple years, and I love inking and I practice and I'm really good at it. So I'm not inexperienced, it's just that these pens for some reason just really like to stain and I'm not sure why. Either way, I am pretty interested in why this was the case. I'm pretty interested in why it did it, but I just don't have an explanation. So if you guys know, I would love to know. On my scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give it a 3. You know, if you find it for super cheap, it's not the worst, and if you like Staedtler and you know how to use them, it probably would be good for you. But for me, I'm just gonna have to rate it that 3 because I just don't think it's worth it. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinions in the comment section down below, so go ahead and tell me what you guys think of this piece. What do you think of the ink? Was I too harsh? All that fun normal YouTube jazz. And speaking of that YouTube jazz, remember you can like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel for more art and animation based content. I'm J.Rod of BLACKEST Productions. I draw power in my own soul.